two monsters in the illusion are exactly the same size, but your brain adjusts the image, which it perceives to be the most distant, in order to compensate for them being larger than they seem.
Good morning. Let us turn to God in prayer. O Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, good morning and welcome to The Walk. We are so glad that you are here. I am Carter, and I'm the new lead pastor here. I'm the one that's tracking down all of your information, and I'm also using an iPad for the first time this morning, so bear with me. But we here at The Walk, we're a place where the sinners and the saints can come to worship. We're the place where those who are skeptical and those who think that they have all the right answers can come and worship. We're a place where the tired and the joyful, the disconnected, the overconnected, the unchurched, and those who are tired of church can come and experience God's grace. So we are glad that you are here, and we believe that your presence with us enriches our experience of God this morning. And so we are here on our second Sunday of 4 in our worship series, Say What? Say what? There you go. Now, it may come to a surprise to you, as we saw in the worship video, that some of us like our lives to be in order, that some of us like to predict with great clarity and detail exactly what the future holds, that we have to-do lists that we like to check off everything on them, and that we like to arrange our lives in just a way so that all of our messes look like that beautiful picture. And so that when people look in, they don't see a pile of mess here or there or everywhere, but they see exactly what we want them to see. That's not exactly how the gospel or Jesus enter our lives, is it? No. They come in, they disorganize our lives. The gospel, it turns things upside down and spins them around and rearranges them in a different kind of order. See, God looks at our lives from a different angle than that one that saw the old man's face, but God sees all of the piles of our messes and calls us beautiful anyway. And then God's grace swoops in, it shakes us, it stirs us, it moves us forward. And each time God does, we stand there scratching our heads, wondering what hit us, saying, there you go. And maybe times when we've arranged our lives so perfectly that we only have to interact with people who are just like us, and then God calls us to step out and love our neighbor and our enemy. Say, what? There you guys go. It could be that just when we've propped up our feet and are ready to rest, that God says, get up and go. And so we are on this journey. We're on this journey with Jesus when he disrupts the disciples' lives and the people around him's lives time after time again. He tells them the way of the gospel, and they just stand there scratching their heads saying, say what? There you go. I wanted to say that one. So now, this one will be a good one for you. One of my professors in divinity school, she liked to remind us over and over again that in the gospel according to Mark, Jesus was a jerk. Say, what? I know, that's what I said. But then the more I heard her say it, and the more she repeated it every single day that we had class with her, the more I started to hear what she was saying. So every time I heard Jesus interrupt the disciples again or cut them short, or every time he got dismissive of a crowd and got tired and turned and ran away, the more I thought that she might be onto something. That maybe, just maybe, in the gospel according to Mark, Jesus can be a jerk. Say what? See, in the gospel. Yes, Kylie?
Look, Mama made the front page of the newspaper.
Can
Can I read it to you? Can I? I've been practicing.
Sure. Let's sit down.
Jesus entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, but he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little girl was possessed by a spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician.
That's her. That's my daughter. I cannot tell you how much our lives have changed recently. We went from being nobodies, no one knew our name, to all of a sudden we are smack dab in the middle of the front page local paper. I'm so proud of her. So much has changed that for the first time, I was able to send her to school. And she's been learning how to read. Did you hear her? She's getting better. She's been practicing so hard. Here, listen, sweetie, keep going.
She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Whoa, did my mom just talk back to Jesus?
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that I said that. I said that to Jesus. But I had to. Because I was at a really, really desperate place in my life, and my daughter's future depended on it. And if you're a parent and you have children, you know that in desperate times, parents will do crazy things for their children. Even calling Jesus out on his bad metaphors. Now see, Jesus was the king of metaphors, and he'd been telling all sorts of different metaphors during his ministry, but this one, it just sounded a little wrong. Jesus said that if you take the children's bread and give it to the dogs, that wording, Jesus, that's not quite right. Yeah, that would be an awful thing to do as a parent. But that's not what I was asking Jesus to do. I didn't want to take anyone's bread away. But the thing is, I knew I wouldn't have to. Because I know all about children and dogs and how they both react around food. Maybe you know too? You see, when she was just 3 years old, we had this big black lab and a dining table that had one of those glass tabletops. And every night at mealtime, we'd sit down at the table, and that dog would park his rump under the table and would just stare at us through that glass tabletop, so that every time we reached down to take a bite, we would see those big brown puppy dog eyes just staring right at us, begging for a morsel. And, this dog, he knew that after dinner, he was going to get his own bowl of premium kibble. But he just couldn't wait. He was so excited, and he just wanted what we had. But even then, he often didn't have to wait. My toddler made a mess all the time. If you've had children, you know that children and crumbs go together. They can't help but make a mess. But even if they were pristine and clean and didn't drop anything to the floor, you know that sometimes toddlers are picky and they will reject their food and they're sneaking that broccoli under the table to that dog because they want to share what they have. The point is, the dog's going to eat. And the children aren't going to be suffering because of that. You see, it's not a competition. There's enough for everyone to eat at the table. Because when someone is blessed, when they have, their cup overflows and everyone else around is blessed as well. And Israel, the Jews, they had a blessing. They had this gift. They had this man named Jesus who was going around and healing people. And I just wanted a little bite of that gift for my daughter. But I couldn't wait. Because unlike my black lab, I didn't know if we Gentiles were guaranteed our own portion of blessing once the Israelites had had their fill. And I'm not a gambler, so I couldn't take that risk. Too much depended on that. Because you don't know what it was like before. Before, people said that my daughter had a demon in her. And I don't really know if that's true. That's not how I would describe it, but that's what people said. And now apparently that's what the whole world is going to think, because that's what the reporter Mark wrote down in the paper. So the whole world thinks of her that way. And this reporter Mark, he was nice, but like he didn't even come and ask my side of the story. He didn't ask my name or her name or, give me a quote for the paper. Didn't ask anything like that. So in this story, all you hear is that I am a nameless Greek Syrophoenician woman who has a nameless demon-possessed daughter. And I'm not convinced that the story's even right either. See, I didn't ask Jesus to drive out this demon because, again, I'm not convinced that that's what even was going on. I just asked Jesus to heal her because for so long, her heart, her little body, her mind has been hurting. The complications started at the beginning, at birth. She was smaller than she should have been. And all her life, she struggled to use her muscles properly and to form the sounds and words. She tried really hard but was never able to quite make any real friends because she would have these outbursts in public, and our doctors and our therapists just didn't have any good advice. They didn't know what caused them. They couldn't help her treat them or control them. And so other children saw. They saw these outbursts and they thought, I don't want to be that kid's friend. And whenever I would go to the marketplace, it became very obvious that the other parents were afraid of her too, because they didn't get it. They couldn't see her for the precious child that I saw her as. See, when most adults see this cute little kid in the street corner, they want to go up and they say hi and they wave and they speak in really silly voices and make funny faces and they ask the kid their favorite color. But not with my daughter. The voices they make are hushed whispers. Stay away from that child. And the faces they make are grimaces and winces. They're judgmental. Around my daughter, no one came and asked her favorite color or even her name. No one ever bothered to ask her name. Did my daughter have a demon in her? I have no idea. It's not really my story to tell. Maybe someday when she's older, she'll be able to think back on her childhood and she'll be able to explain it using her own words. But what I do know is that whatever was keeping her trapped in her own little mind, her own little world, it was nowhere near as evil as other people who excluded her from community, from belonging, from having friends. The harm wasn't in her heart. The harm was in the hearts of other people. Other people who didn't know how to accept her, who didn't know how to treat her or act like she belonged. People who didn't know how to take someone different and not compare them to whatever they thought was normal. So I never sent her to school because I wanted to protect her. For a while I tried homeschooling, but I was really busy being a single mom as well, and I just wasn't very good at teaching. And she began to get lonely and she wanted friends. She told me she just wanted someone to play dolls with. I mean, how much like an average little girl is that? That desire. But no one came to play. So she got depressed, and her sadness turned to temper tantrums because she had reached this age when she began to realize that she was different and was being treated differently and was missing out on all kinds of childhood adventures. So she acted out more than normal. And every night when we would read our bedtime fairy tale stories, the laughter that I used to hear was now just bitter silence. I miss that laugh. But her dreams, like all little girls, she used to dream really big. She wanted to be a princess and have that happily ever after fairy tale ending, and she started to lose faith in that. She began to realize she could never have that. So she lost faith in that dream. I had to do something. So I'd heard stories of Jesus. The Jewish people called him Messiah or Savior, and he sounded an awful lot like those fairy godmothers from those stories we would read. And I could tell that the Jews were really excited because this was someone that they had been waiting for a long, long time. And it was here, and it was blessing them. And I was excited because I was hearing rumors that Jesus was making the lame walk and was making the blind to see and was raising children from the dead and was even casting out demons. Can you imagine a blessing like that? I just wanted a piece of that. So one day, Jesus came to my town, just came rolling on in, and he tried to hide. He tried. But when there's good news to be told, people won't keep quiet. And when there are sick people who have a deep need for healing, they're going to find the doctor. So I found him. I found him, and well, I hadn't planned out what I was going to say. So I dropped to my knees, and I just begged him to heal her. And I didn't care what that healing was going to look like. I just wanted her to be loved and seen as precious the way I see her. And I felt like this was my last chance. It might be my very last chance to save her from a future of rejection. And then Jesus compared us to dogs. And that really hurt. And I thought about leaving and running. But I don't really blame them. These people, these Jews, had suffered a lot at the hands of other people, so I don't blame them for thinking so lowly of us. But it still hurt. And then something changed inside of me. I decided, no, Jesus, I can't leave empty-handed. Your metaphor is wrong. So I talked back to Jesus. And I told him how it really was, that even the dogs will eat the crumbs under the children's table. I wasn't willing to leave empty-handed. I needed this blessing for my daughter. I needed people to understand that my daughter was not a dog. She is worth more than that. And when you talk back to the Son of God, you are scared. And after I heard these words coming out of my mouth, I was terrified, and I thought about running again. But his eyes just locked onto mine. And I couldn't turn away. I couldn't move. I was just frozen by his intense stare. And he didn't look angry. His face kind of softened, and he was a little surprised, but he wasn't angry. I felt ashamed for challenging that kind of a man. His eyes looked at mine, and I couldn't look away, and it felt like an eternity. Jesus and you in a staring contest is eternity. But then, Jesus broke the silence. Sweetheart, tell them what he said.
And he told her, "For such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." She went home and found her child lying on the bed, and the demon gone.
The crumbs fell off the table, and there was enough. There was enough for everyone. And my daughter's physical condition improved. Not perfect. She'll always be a little bit different. But she was well enough that I could send her to school. And she started to learn how to read, and she made friends. I was grateful for the miracle that Jesus had worked in her body, but I was more grateful for the miracle that... Okay, so here's the part of the story that you don't know. Because Mark and the other people, they left town too quickly. The miracle didn't just happen in her body. It happened in everybody's body. Because she wasn't the only one changed. Everyone around her was changed too. And so at school, children were able to see her as just another kid. And they could play dolls, play on the playground, and other parents invited her over for play dates. And that was the real miracle. I think that's what miracles are like, you know? Like, it doesn't just stay with one person, it just spills out and touches everyone around. There's enough, and your cup is overflowing, and you can't help but change other people's lives too. There's a lot of things I still don't know. She may have friends now with Jews, but I don't really know if there will ever be a day when all of Jews will embrace all Gentiles as fellow brothers and sisters. I don't know if I'll ever see Jesus again. But his miracle, it was enough. And these miracles don't have to be all that extreme or all that dramatic. It can be just a crumb, just a taste, just enough to hold you over until the next time when you encounter Jesus. There's a lot I don't know. But when I look at her, I know what Jesus can do. And so I'm not afraid anymore about our future, because whatever our future holds, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And maybe one day something will change, and the rest of these people won't call us such harmful names anymore. I just realized something. I never actually told you her name. I made such a big deal about it, and then I never told you her name. Do you guys want to know? Her name is Hope.
So as I was saying, Jesus in the gospel according to Mark can sometimes be a jerk. So here it's as if Mark says, move over, Jesus with rosy colored cheeks and perfectly combed hair. Move over, Jesus who is so patient with the disciples. Time after time again, move over, Jesus who wanders around ancient Judea, casting out healings and demons like a flower girl tossing petals down the aisle, with joy and ease. Move over, Jesus Christ, superstar Jesus, who's always ready to burst forth in song. Move over, Mr. Meek and Mr. Mild. See, as the gospel, as it zooms out and we see Jesus from a different angle, we see this Son of God who is a weary traveler. We see images of sandy feet and scratched ankles and dirt under the fingernails and this wind-swept hair. It's not all that it is cut out to be. We see Jesus as tired, frustrated, hangry, and thirsty. We see someone just trying to find a hot meal, a place to prop up his feet and rest. So it was there in that dimly lit room in a place called Tyre, where he finds a place of rest. And it's there where we encounter a totally different image of Jesus. The one of a traveler seeking refuge in a foreign town, the one of Jesus with his guard down, in all of his vulnerability and all of his humanness is exposed for us to see. Say what? Jesus in his humanness? A moment where he perhaps doesn't have it all together? A moment that is raw, where we can see the experiences of his life on earth. And to me, this is one thing that makes Jesus relatable. It's what makes him like us. That he doesn't get a free pass on all of the physical conditions of life. That he doesn't have some eternal supply of politeness. that pours out at every moment. See, this is a God I can relate to. And it's here where the woman finds Jesus. And as Pastor Letty Russell says, the woman finds Jesus with his compassion down. This unnamed woman, this desperate parent, she catches him and she commits faux pas after faux pas. She enters a house uninvited. She's a woman approaching a man. She's a Syrophoenician, a Gentile talking to a Jew. She leaps across the boundaries that divide us in society. And in her desperate act of faith, she proclaims that nothing, not race, not ethnicity, not economic status, not sexuality, not family status, not mental or physical ability, nothing should separate us from the gospel. Nothing. She dares to advocate on behalf of the suffering, the hurting, and the forgotten. And what does Jesus do? He calls her a dog. And if we were reading that newspaper and we heard what Jesus said, we wouldn't think that Jesus is calling her some sort of pet name that he made up on the spot or a cute little puppy. But we would hear an ethnic slur. Say, what? Jesus? Jesus replies by calling her a dog. He doubts if she is even worthy to eat the crumbs that are left over from the children of Israel. And so as soon as Jesus calls her a dog, I like to think that he channels his inner Steve Urkel. Did I do that? With some deep sense of regret. But we don't hear words of repentance, words of regret, or words that Jesus is even testing her. We do not hear words from anyone else in the room or from Jesus that are explaining away his behavior, offering excuses that he is tired, that he is hurting, that he just needs a moment away. We do not hear Jesus say anything. We don't even hear someone whisper to him, Jesus, you might need a little bit more compassion. Instead, the first words we hear are words from a mother. Words from a mother. It could be a daughter, a son, a father, or a beloved. We hear words of someone who dares to believe that the gospel is big enough for their loved ones. Words that dare to speak back to Jesus. Words that come from someone out of a desperate act of faith. From someone who believes that all means all. And as Kelly Carpenter says, words that dare to challenge Jesus' power to set up barriers around the gospel. And what follows? What follows for Jesus is a moment that is so unlike us. See, if we were in Jesus' shoes, we would get defensive. We would say, no, I'm tired, my ankles hurt, I'm really sorry you caught me at a bad time, I'm off right now. We would explain it away with these excuses, or we just didn't have the energy, we weren't our best selves. We could say, I was untying my shoe and I didn't see the pain and distress in her face. I tuned out the story because I've heard so many of them before. See, where our guard would go up, where we would become so defensive, Jesus's guard, it stays down. He doesn't turn to defensiveness or excuses. But in that moment, in his rawness and his vulnerability, he turns to humility. He turns to listening to her, and he turns to compassion. Go, he says, for the demon has left your daughter. Perhaps Jesus is transformed by his relationship with this woman. Perhaps Jesus learned a little something about the bounds of the kingdom of heaven. Perhaps, in his exhausted state, in his worn-out days of traveling, he just needed to be reminded of something he already knew. But I like to think of Jesus as a God who is relatable, as the one who has been there and done that and gets what it's like to be us. And so this passage, it's full of things we don't know, we can't know, and full of things that make us scratch our heads and wonder, say what? What in the world? But what we do know is that in this space, whether it's in that little room in Tyre, whether it's here in our sanctuary, whether it's in the places where we meet people throughout the week, that there in that space is where hope is born. Hope in the sense that we don't have to go through this whole vulnerability and humility thing alone. That perhaps God has been there and done that and shows us what it's like. That in those moments where we want all of our defenses to go up and say, yeah, I meant to include everyone, I just forgot to include that one person because I don't really like them right now. Or that time when we just say, I just want to rest this one more day, but then that becomes day after day after day after day. And we ignore Jesus saying, get up and go. Moments when our compassion run dry, moments like this, we can look at Jesus and we can hear the reminders that God's grace is extended to us and is extended to the person we least would like it to be extended to. Hope is born in these moments where we think that just as God's grace has been drawn in a wide enough circle, that perhaps it can get stretched just a bit wider. See, hope is also born here. Hope is born out of courage. It's born out of ordinary people like us, unnamed mothers, fathers, friends, and partners. Hope that comes from ordinary people doing desperate acts of faith. Hope comes from mothers daring to believe that their sons have a future and devoting their lives to working on prison reform. Or fathers, like that of Malala, who dared to dream that their daughters deserve the same education as their sons. See, hope is born out of the courage of ordinary people in these desperate, devoted acts of faith. In friends that visit friends in nursing homes, and they serve them and advocate for them in the places where family and staff stop. Hope is born in partners dropping off their beloved at a treatment facility saying, no, addiction does not have the final say. Hope, born out of courage, born out of desperate faith. Hope in a God that can relate to us, that knows what it is like. Hope that there are no barriers to the gospel, that nothing, neither life nor death, nor things present, nor things to come, can separate us from the love of God in Christ. See, friends, in this space, hope is given new life. Her name is Hope. What is ours? Amen.